Right, thank you for joining. Kath is supposed to be with us. I know she will join. I hope she'll join. I don't see her here yet. Let me just check. No, she's not on yet, but I'm sure she will come on just to help answer any questions that you might have. But welcome. This is the national support session for your next assignment, your second assignment. So hopefully now you're getting the hang of this and it's not too daunting. The assignment is due on the 7th of June next week, and please remember the deadline for submission is 9 o'clock. So anytime up until 9 o'clock, 1 minute past 9, 10 seconds after 9 is all too late and we're not allowed to mark them. So just a note, due date and due time. I've just used your assignment here. So it's the same as the last assignment. It's 100 marks and should take you about 10 hours. This is off the front of your assignment paper about not copying anything from original sources, even if you reference it, unless it's a direct quote. Okay, direct quotes must have quotation marks, and no more than 10% of the assignment might be direct quotes. So please be very sparing with your direct quotations. Please use your skills in paraphrasing. When you are using your source documents, try not to use direct quotes unless absolutely necessary. And remember, direct quotes need to have the page number from where they've been sourced. That was a big fall down in the last assignment. And just remember, always save a copy of your assignment because something could go wrong somewhere, and at least you've got a record of it, which is the most important thing. Okay. So typed like usual, adequately and correctly referenced, begin each question or section on a new page. And obviously it's an individual assignment, and please try and stick to the word limits. Okay, APA referencing, 7th edition. Look at the guide. We had a fantastic referencing session with Margaret Bass, the librarian. I've put the resource up. I think Kath's also put the resource up. So I really would encourage you to watch that if you haven't. And please get hold of Margaret. Her email address is there. I've put it in announcements so that if you've got any questions, if you are unsure, go to Margaret. She is a phenomenal source of assistance. So please, if you don't know, if you are unsure, book that slot with Margaret and she is more than happy to help. Okay, the same rubric from your paper. Again, please monitor this rubric for your errors. I think we gave a little bit of leniency in the first assignment. There were a lot of referencing defects, which is why we did the session with Margaret. So for every source you use, make sure that you're happy with the source, that you feel that we'll be happy with the source, and go and check how to reference it. Okay, check every time that you got the referencing correct, especially when you are using websites. And Margaret goes into that in great detail. So again, I really urge you to listen to that recording, to read the sources that are available for you, because there's going to be no leniency in these assignments regarding referencing. Referencing, please, consistency. Hi, Kath. Kath has joined us.
Sorry, I'm late, guys.
Don't worry, we've only just started. Referencing must be consistent, so the same format throughout. That includes your bibliography. Please make sure that your bibliography is the format of it, the font of it is exactly the same as your document. I don't want to see inconsistent fonts all over the bibliography. It must look neat and tidy and presentable in the same font as your essay, with the relevant pieces in italics. That your referencing is correct throughout the submission. Okay, it must be consistent, and it must be correct throughout, that you put the reference in the right place, and that there's no errors. Okay, last chance on referencing. And it must be congruent. So remember, the key thing is you cannot have sources in your bibliography that you have not cited in your text. I don't want a list of things that you've read that's 3 pages long. I need to see where you've used that source in your text. So every in-text reference must have a a reference in the bibliography, and everything in the bibliography we need to find in the text. And the first thing we do when we look at it is we go through, before even really reading it completely, is we go and we match those together. And it's a very key part of this. Can I just double check the paper? Only advise on question 4 for referencing. Must every question, every idea that is not your own must be referenced. Okay, you shouldn't be told specifically for one question. It is every idea that is not your own. Okay, so things like general knowledge, that's fine, but everything that appears in any question that's not your own idea needs to be referenced. It doesn't just apply to question 4. Right, so it's consistent throughout your assignment. So what your assignment tells you is basically after this assignment, and these are the things they're looking that you can do, is looking at how signals in the brain are sent and received to be able to differentiate between peripheral and central nervous system, list and describe the brain scanning techniques in order to understand brain functioning. Yes, you can mention a source as many times as you need to, Cheryl Lee, that's not a problem. Explain the various brain imaging procedures. So now the key to this assignment is look at the very first point under assignment instructions. It says this assignment focuses on learning units 3. Okay. So that's where your focus is. It's on learning unit 3, is called Biology of Behavior. It's chapter 3 in your textbook, and that's where this assignment focuses. So don't go wandering off into other learning units. It's actually given you quite a key there that we're only going to focus in on 3. I know the module outline says 3 and 4, but the actual, when you read the assignment, it comes from learning unit 3, and that's the instruction that's given on the assignment. Okay, we're given the rubrics which are available in your assignment, which you'll see, and we have to use those rubrics to mark. So if you follow those rubrics, you will see again how your marks will be allocated. Referencing, highly important, APA 7th edition. Right, question 1, straightforward. It's got quite a long case study there, which I'm not going to read out because you are all able to read that case study about a fly and food. But I think what you need to do is you need to focus in specifically towards the end of that case study where it says, many things are going through your mind. Many complex processes are taking place beyond the level of conscious awareness to understand what has occurred. Your brain is interpreting characters to understand. As you reply back to what the manager told you, your brain is sending signals. Key word is your brain is sending signals to your fingers on the keyboard. So there's your case study. So question 1 says to you, based on the case scenario above, explain what is occurring in the brain when signals are sent and received. So it's specifically looking at what happens in the brain when signals are sent and received. That's 30 marks. Okay, so that's a long essay. It's going to be 2 pages, I would gather or guess, round about 2 pages. But question 1 be theory and application to case study. So examples referring to the case study or only the theory. You need to refer back to your case study. If you look now, I've put the marking rubric below there. And the first part of the, okay, Megan, are you in my group, Megan, or Kath's group? Okay, Kath, will you just check that for Megan?
I will. Okay. I will. No,
okay.
No, I'll go check it out.
Okay, cool. Okay, so there's 2 parts to this. There's 30 marks, but it's divided the question sort of not, you don't have to use 1.1, don't necessarily break it, but we're looking for that you can show firstly how the signals are sent and received. So that is the theory. And the second part of it is that you can accurately make connection between theory and the case scenario. So that's the question that you asked, Robin. Would question 1 be theory and application? Yes, it would be. Okay, and it's specifically asking, so it doesn't want 2 pages of theory, and it doesn't want 2 pages of copying verbatim from the textbook the process of sending signals in the brain. It needs to show that you can apply it back to the case study. So we're looking 15 marks or so is around the theory, and then 15 marks or so is to accurately make that connection, make that link between what you're writing about in the theory and what is presented in the case study. So when we mark it, we look into those categories and we're saying, are you exceeding the standard, or are you approaching it? Or are you doing it insufficiently? So that's how we start to gauge our marks. So theory and application for that question. And it's very clear that when you move into PSYC at this level, or any level at NQF level 6 that we're on when we're doing a bachelor degree, we're looking that you can not just understand the theory, but the application. So is that clear? We're looking only at learning unit 3. And in that particular instance, we're looking at the processes in the brain with the signaling. Okay, sent and received. 2 things, sent and received. Right, question 1.2. Your friend who is studying law does not understand the difference between the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. How would you go about providing a detailed explanation to them so they might have a better understanding? Again, it's 30 marks. So again, we're going to be looking at about 2 pages. You don't need to reference the case study, Jean. It doesn't matter. The case study is there. You don't need to reference the case study. Remember in this question that your friend is a lawyer. Okay, he's not a doctor. He doesn't know things. You have to assume he doesn't understand a lot of technical jargon. So again, how do you do that? You're going to try to use examples as well. So again, you're going to do theory, but you're going to do the theory in a way that as much as you speak about the theory, you are able to provide clear examples to understand how the nervous system affects bodily functions. So we'll be looking for that. We're not just looking that you know in bullet point, and please don't use bullet point format to write these questions. Write them in written style, in paragraphs, that you can differentiate or explain to your friend who the lawyer is what the differences are, and clear examples to be provided in order to understand how the nervous system affects bodily functions. So is that, I think that's straightforward enough, not just 2 pages of theory, but make sure for each of the different aspects of the nervous system, you're able to sort of give an example to someone who doesn't know what you're talking about. Okay, 30 marks for that. Lovely marking ahead of us. Question 1.3. Okay, now this specifically says in essay format. It's only 20 marks. Okay, but it says essay format. When it says essay format, the first thing you know with an essay format is you need to do an introduction and a conclusion. That is what an essay format means. So as much as we can do it in our longer questions, specifically this question is going to be looking to say, have you done an introduction and have you done a conclusion? So in essay format, discuss different brain scanning techniques used in practice to understand brain functioning. You must make use of 2 sources in addition to your prescribed textbooks. Yeah, I don't necessarily mind a subheading, Shirley, if it's 2 clear different things that you're differentiating, Shirley, between, it's not a problem. But the key for this, you can use more than 2 sources, but remember this is only for 20 marks, so it's not quite as long as your 30-mark questions. But you need to make use of 2 sources in addition to your textbook. Okay, so your textbook is not one of those sources. This means research, and it means research to find academic sources. Okay, we had a long discussion in our collab on the library and discussing what is an academic source. It means that the source is credible, is peer-reviewed. It's not just from a random website. So please find the best authentic sources possible. You don't need, if it doesn't ask you for extra sources specifically, it's not a requirement, but you obviously have to reference your ideas. So if your ideas are only from the textbook and you only have Wheaton in your in your document. It doesn't necessarily matter in those first 2 questions, but it is always advisable to try, if you can, to bring in extra sources if you need to make your answers substantive for us. Okay, we're looking that you understand, that you can apply your knowledge, and obviously the sources you use do impact on how we mark it. So this one is an essay format, introduction and conclusion, and those 2 additional sources. So what we're marking on is a clear introduction of what the scanning techniques are, so an introduction to them, an accurate and in-depth discussion on at least 2 brain scanning techniques. Okay, there might be more than 2 in your book, but it's only for 20 marks. So if you need to give in-depth, then rather give quality on 2 than just a little bit on 4 or 5, if you understand what I'm saying, because that shows us that you're using the research. You know, for 20 marks to do more than 2, you're going to actually lose the depth of what you're trying to show us. 1.3 is 20, page and a half. It says 1 to 2 pages in length is satisfactory. It's got that in the rubric. So we're marking you on the credible sources, have you used them, and a clear conclusion. So the marks are broken down there. So it's almost like if you've done a good introduction, that's good marks. If you've chosen 2 techniques and you give us some good information, then that's extra marks. If you've got your 2 sources in and they're accurate sources and they're accurately referenced, that's also marks, and a clear conclusion. And just remember, don't waste a lot of time repeating yourself in the introduction and the conclusion, because it's 20 marks. So an introduction and a conclusion, don't repeat yourself and say the same thing. Okay. So your introduction is really about what the scanning techniques are, and then put in a clear conclusion at the end. A clear conclusion in paragraphs of between 6 to 10 lines for ease of reading. And I think that's something that we emphasize, is try to make it easy for us to read. If everything's all churned together into one long page, and the easier you make it for us to read and mark, the better it is for us to be able to mark, and it makes us happy. And when we're happy, marking becomes easier for us. So just make sure your format is good, and it's the brain scanning techniques. You need to do at least 2 and use your 2 sources. That's the very first thing we'll check, is we'll check the sources that you've got them in there. Okay, it's not a very long session, this, but I think it's just a very straightforward answer. The last question, again for 20 marks, and this is back to our lovely table side-by-side format. Choose any 2 brain imaging procedures. So remember, specifically look in your textbook for where it talks about brain imaging procedures, and create a side-by-side comparison in a table format. So like we did last time, you've got a table with a column in the middle. On one side of the table, you'll have one of the brain imaging procedures. On the other side, you'll have the other. And you're going to discuss them, any similarities or differences, side by side with clear examples. Now, the big fall down is, regardless of whether you're writing in a table or in a paragraph, you need to cite inside your table. Do not put a citation under the table, because that means the entire table is taken from somewhere. So just forget in your head that you're writing in a table. Think of it as a paragraph and cite inside as you're sourcing those ideas and the information about brain imaging procedures. Okay, so choose any 2 brain imaging procedures used in practice. Create a side-by-side comparison table detailing how each understand various abnormalities in the brain. Okay, abnormalities in the brain, how they pick up any abnormalities, discuss any similarities or differences, and clear examples. Refer to assignment 1 for a side-by-side table. Okay, we all know now, I think, what a side-by-side table is, and your reference in the table format using APA 7th edition. So how do we mark it? We mark it out of 20 marks, that you've explained any 2 brain imaging procedures used to understand the abnormalities. There must be insightful and in-depth information to show that further research, it's there, it's in this rubric, to show that further research has been conducted into these and is not just a repetition of the textbook. Okay, so that's also telling you that the standard to which you write is going to be guided by the research that you've done. So in order to get into that 15 to 20 mark excellent standard or exceeding the standard, we need to show that you've done some further research, okay, and insightful and in depth. I think that that is not a difficult assignment. It's just for you a bit more work because you've really got to apply yourself to the research now and show us how you've done it and that your research sources are good and that you reference them correctly. So this is writing and referencing skills here. Kath, do you want to add anything? Because there's not too much more for me to say unless anybody else has got any questions.
No, not at all. I think that's perfect what you've said. Pretty much the face-to-face students are also doing the same assignment, and yeah, it's just making sure that you are writing so that the most important part, and it comes up quite a lot with the peripheral and the central nervous system, is just write as if you are explaining it to someone that has no understanding of the content. So just like Rebecca said, write as if you're writing to your law friend that has no biological background. And otherwise, very easy, very straightforward.
Yeah. Okay, so Jean, question 1.1 in essay format. You know, if it specifically says essay format, you need the intro and the conclusion. If it's just a 30-mark question, it doesn't necessarily say essay format, you don't necessarily need that introduction and conclusion, so we're not going to look for it. But in the specific question where it asks for essay format, that's where you need to put in the introduction and conclusion. So just write your paragraphs and outline it. It doesn't need a you mentioned Purdue OWL is APA 7th ref site. Yes, I don't know what that means. Is APA Jasmine? I don't know what that question is. You mentioned Purdue OWL is APA 7th. It is, okay, to understand it, yes, Purdue OWL is APA 7th editions referencing. And it's a really phenomenal resource. So if you want to do a website, find your website, just see what you need to do, go to that source, and it will just give you a step-by-step guide as to how to reference it. So every reference you want to do, just check in with the guide that you got it correct. Yeah, no, got you now. I think we answered your question. Cheryl Lee, in what formats 1 and 2? It's just going to be paragraph answers. It doesn't specifically say essay format, so we're not marking according to introduction and conclusion. It's just the one question specifically where we're going to look for that introduction and conclusion, and it's part of our mark allocation. Okay, any more questions? I am recording this and I will upload it. And again, if you've got any questions that you're really battling with or don't understand or need a bit of guidance or not sure, you can drop us an email, and Margaret's email is really important for you. It's due at 9. It's due at 9, Kirsten. So it's due, actually make it 8 o'clock. Pretend it's 8, not 9 is safer option. Okay. Right, any other headings or Robin, just on one side of the table, you're going to have the heading for your one reference, your one brain imaging process, and on the other side of the table would be your heading for the other brain imaging process. There's no set lines for the comparisons. You'd just be able, just in your text, you'll just reference if you need to, if it will just show us if it's a comparison. But it's just 2 simple headings, one for one type and the other for the other type. Yeah, it's nice and easy. It's just, it is, I think it's probably, Kath, just looks a bit challenging because we don't spend much time on the scanning and the imaging stuff. We're more into the signaling and the, you know, the nervous systems and things. So it actually is just going to push you to do a bit more research, but that's good. Right, guys, that's it. I hope you're all happy. Any problems, let us know. And I wish you all a warm, yeah, it's chilly, so keep warm, and yeah, wish you all the best for the assignment. Thanks, Kath. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.